Welcome everybody to the session to end all sessions. It's session 3, guys. Yippee! So we're going to be talking about session 3, arguably the most impactful session that we have done so far. A lot of things happen, and none of it's good. But things happen, and there's a lot to talk about here. So let's freaking go! So where we are going to start off with session 3 is actually after the breakfast scene from session 2, which actually bled a little bit into session 3, but I just decided to lump it all into session 2 because it'd get confusing if we just started from the breakfast scene yet again. So we're going to start with the party going and getting into their masquerade outfits. Everyone does get their own outfit, and I know that they all have varying degrees of importance to their characters, but I unfortunately don't remember all of them, if I want to be completely honest. Our notes did not really describe what they all look like, so I'm going to describe the ones that I do know of and have enough of a description for. So the ones that are definitely important, first off, is Rover. He has an outfit that is very clearly inspired by the ocean, and he has a mask on that covers up his right eye specifically. Fizz is dressed up quite literally just as the lighthouse. He's also very, very exposed here. He's got on this stupid like sheer shirt with a v-neck that literally goes all the way down to his waist. It's really impractical. Ela is in some like awful skin tight green dress. In my notes, it was described as being very tree-ish. She is very reminiscent of a tree. Josephina is the last one on this list of the important ones. She is straight up wearing a wedding gown, and she is also wearing a veil and sporting apple earrings. A few little important things happen during this dress-up scene, one of them being that Rover starts panicking because his mask is showing one of his eyes, which he usually keeps covered up by his hair. Fizz is kind enough to cover his eye back up while also respecting his privacy and not looking at his face while he does that. Thank you, Fizz, I love you. As Novus leaves for the masquerade, he ends up overhearing a conversation between two of the maids about some kind of syndicate and a woman named Yvette who has lost a child, apparently. Now that everyone's all dressed up, it's finally time to go into the masquerade. So everyone arrives at the ballroom, and there are 4 rooms adjacent to it. A museum, a war room, 2 rooms with glass doors that we can't see through, but they'll be revealed as a game room and a garden. Party is then greeted by Aaliyah, and they have some silly banter between each other. The royal party is sitting on a stage with a line of men that's trying to speak with Ed. Etude has also managed to make it in, though she seemingly was not invited here. The party first enters the museum, and they find a series of paintings there, all of which I'm going to describe right now. The first painting is one of a woman. She has dark skin and white hair, and looks surprisingly similar to Et. However, the woman has no face, or any defining features for that matter, besides these 2 things. She wears a thin white dress with long flowy sleeves, and she's depicted to be hovering around what seems to be the planet that we live on. It is titled Philia Puerilis. I really hope I said that right. The second painting is of a bear next to a river. It lays lifeless on its back with its head and neck flopped into the river. Its guts are revealed with its stomach cut open, its ribs glistening in the moonlight. Blood covers the trees and taints the water. The style is disgusting and realistic. This one is titled Lie, Rib Bear, which is an inside joke among the group. Then got turned into a painting. The third painting is of a king. He's stationed underneath a guillotine with a cheering crowd before him. His daughter watches from the side, tied to a stake. They seem to be being executed together. This one's called Monarch History. The fourth painting is of a dragonborn, and I'm not even going to sugarcoat this one. I'm not even going to try to read this out like it's cool or anything. It's the Mona Lisa, but Fizz. This one's called the Fizzolina, and this one's also based on an inside joke. The fifth painting is of the sea. In the distance is a bright light. We can't really see the source of the light in the painting, but the title basically tells us what it is. This one is called The Lighthouse. All of the paintings are done by the same person, Purila, if that's how you say it. There are also a number of objects around the museum. None of them are exactly that noteworthy. There's some treasure, a knight's helmet, and some other artifacts from time. However, one of them stands out, that being a plaque showing 3 people holding hands with a godly hand coming down towards them. Once they leave the museum, the group then starts exploring around, and they go to the greenhouse. This is where they find Themaris and Rosa. Rosa and Azriel steal some plants, and Rover proceeds to sympathize with Themaris' situation and offers a helping hand if he ever needs to talk. The party then goes to the game room, where Axis and Devilish Sprinkle are playing chess. Something to note here. Sprinkle is dressed up as a white pawn, and I'm not even like, I don't know how to describe this outfit. I don't think anybody knows how to describe this outfit. When I imagine it, it literally just looks like a pawn. She's wearing some strange cape that makes her like in the shape of one of them, but underneath it she's wearing a black version of the wedding dress that Josefina's wearing. Also, Devilish Sprinkle loses this chess match. I don't know if that has any sort of significance or says anything about her, but she does end up losing to Axis. So here comes the moment where things start to get rough. The gang split up a little bit, with Lyraver, Rover, and Fizz sticking together, and the others kind of just going off and doing whatever the heck they want. Azriel ends up meeting Yvette, who has some sort of relation to Azriel, but I don't remember what exactly that is. But she ends up telling Azriel that he has to leave, like right now. Meanwhile, Fizz and Rover and Lyraver are hanging out, and they bond over hors d'oeuvres or whatever, and they also end up finding Ela, who is speaking to Faye, Prosperine, and Margaret. So Lyraver ends up learning that Prosperine and Carissime are part of some sort of syndicate, the same ones that the maids are talking about earlier. Rover, of course, naturally gets very, very frightened at seeing Margaret and the fact that Margaret has now seen him and is aware that he is here. To cheer him up, Fizz ends up dancing with him and the two end up kissing. They go into the garden to, I guess, be alone, and they end up finding Josefina and Devilish Sprinkle. Josefina is frozen, and Devilish Sprinkle force feeds Josefina a bite of the apple by kissing her. Rover and Fizz try to intervene, but are frozen by Devilish Sprinkle, force-fed Agias, and also have them activated. The rest of the PCs, plus Prosperine, enter to intervene. Prosperine is frozen, but isn't fed an Agia, and it's probably because Novus tackled Devilish Sprinkle, and they crash through a nearby window. Lyraver gets Prosperine, Fizz, and Rover's doll boxes. Something I would like to point out is that whatever name that was written on Rover's box has been scratched out and just replaced with The Rover, with a smiley face and a thumbs up. Once everyone has been unfrozen, they hear a commotion in the ballroom, and go out to see that Devilish Sprinkle has teleported herself and Novus out onto the stage. Axis steps on stage, and notably no longer seems as decrepit as he used to be. When he points this out, he talks about how whoever he is had killed the person that Axis was and took over his body. He's also revealed to kind of be like an apple tree, as he sprouts golden antlers that appear to be like branches. All of the quote-unquote unimportant people in the room are then turned into shards of glass, similar to what we saw in Session 1's opening dream sequence. This basically kills them. Hundreds of people are dead now in an instant. Only 30 people are left alive in this room aside from the guards, which is notably 2 away from making a full chess set. There are 2 missing pieces, and those are people with names that start with C and R. One is missing and the other is imprisoned. Now, this Axis imposter does have a name, and I'm aware of it, but something tells me that this name is going to be changing soon, so until we actually get the name revealed in Session, I'm just going to be calling him Not Axis. So Not Axis introduces Devilish Sprinkle, as well as 2 people who help them accomplish this task, those being Rosa and Eddie. Rosa was tricked into it, but Eddie knew full well that this was the plan. Supposedly, the prophecy is real, and these 30 people are the supposed candidates. The plan is just to have these knights pick off these chess pieces, and the survivors are going to be kidnapped. Some of the knights, including Wilona and Themaris, are told to leave and go destroy a nearby camp where a bunch of Ettenheim-like squires and knights live. Novus then antagonizes Not Axis, who is confident that if any of the pieces were lost or destroyed, he'd just find replacements for them. Despite this, Novus draws a dagger and slits his throat. As he's dying, he calls out Chrysime's name, and then he's gone. Not Axis turns Novus into a shard of glass as well. Etude is also here, and she gets turned into an apple tree monster, and she is in an incredible amount of pain. The villains then escape through Devilish Sprinkle's teleportation cloak, but as they're leaving, Azriel convinces Rosa to give him the papers before running away with the other villains. And then Carissime just appears and starts killing the knights, I believe. The main party, along with Igna and Snuffles, escape the ballroom and make for the nearby camp to stop Not Axis's knights from killing a ton of just actual children. So that was a lot, right? How about we take a bit of a break and cut back to Novus. We're not done with him yet, despite everything. Novus wakes up in a flower field. In front of him is a group of people. There's a bartender Loxodon named Joven, a pale woman in a black wedding gown named Elizabeth, Eel's mother, Alma, an Aarakocra girl named Zara, a 13-year-old Serval Tabaxi boy named Norman, who is covered in blood, and a red-haired girl from the masquerade that got turned into glass. Norman and Joven are playing checkers with pieces that appear to look more like coins. Norman ends up beating Joven. Novus also learns that Joven, and of course Alma, were from Rublara. They were attacked by shadowy knights that, came and destroyed the place. None of them seem to really know where they are, just that they're all dead. They've all also been here for different periods of time, and Norman is the only one who doesn't say how long he's been here. Joven then just tells Novus to share about his life, which, he starts doing.
Are we feeling relaxed now? Are we feeling nice and cozy and full of joy?
Well, too bad. You're getting that ripped away from you, and it's never ever coming back. We are going back to the real world. Aaliyah, who has managed to escape the ballroom as well, offers the party a ride. So they all go over to Sora's place, where they grab a carriage and all of their pets. The party leaves in the carriage, leaving behind Igna and Snuffles because, let's be so real, those guys should not be in a fight at all. Ela and Rover then proceed to call Novus's death a 5 out of 10. I don't know why Ela said this, but Rover only did this because, in typical Rover fashion, he got scared and he said something that he wouldn't normally do. Naturally, no one is a fan of this. So just to kind of gloss over it, because it's a bit of combat and not like there's much important that happens here, the party does get to the camp and they're able to stop Non-Axis' knights, while also successfully making sure that Ettenheim's knights and squires don't kill Wilona or Themerus. Something that is important to note that I almost forgot about is that none of Non-Axis' knights seem to have any free will of their own. They can still see what they're doing, they're aware of what they're doing, but they can't control their bodies, it seems. So everything that they're doing is fully against their will, especially Wilona's. During the fight, Novus' sister Beat just kinda shows up. Oh, and also she's a, child. She's 13 or 14, and she owns a gun. She broke the one rule of the campaign, which was don't play someone who can't legally drink, but it's fine. After combat is over, Beat is told about Novus' death, and she decides to stick around with the crew to enact revenge, even though, Novus dying was entirely his fault. During the fight, a dagger had been stabbed into the keyhole marking that Wilona has, and the marking had begun to spread along her body. Beat explains that Wilona is becoming abducted, much like Novus was, and that the Wilona that we knew is dead. Wilona is overcome by the black ooze that pours out of her until she eventually dies. No one is able to do anything about it, except for Themerus, who ran off. Reluctantly, the party goes to wash up at a nearby river. When they return to the battlefield, Wilona's body is gone, leaving only a trail of black ooze that suddenly stops. The party then goes back to the castle to retrieve their things, and they have to pass through the ballroom to get there. The ballroom is a mess. A lot of people are dead, the most noteworthy being Yvette and Heimer. After the party gets their things, they return to the ballroom. Ed, who had been grieving Heimer, gives the party a blue gem pendant that imprints itself into Lyra's map, creating an arrow that points to Abscondura. And looking back, this is probably the bijou. These are probably bijoux, but I won't call them that until we're actually told. So a little bit of catch-up happens here, with Beat learning about the prophecy and Prosperine learning about Wilona's death. Azriel also vows to Yvette that he'll, quote-unquote, find everyone. Lyra says goodbye to Prosperine, and the party head off towards Abscondura. This is not the end of the session, though. We do still have one more little teeny tiny moment. Cutting back to the afterlife, or whatever it may be, 2 more people have joined, those being Yvette and Wilona. Wilona notably can't see here, and is incapable of speaking. Novus helps her to speak again, and Wilona asks Novus to tell her everything that he knows. And that's where session 3 ends. On a horribly somber note, and nobody is happy, and that's the story of DFW. Whenever the heck we end up coming back and doing session 4, I'll make another one of these, but that's not gonna be for 10 more years. So yeah, we'll come back with session 4 eventually.